Jensen is very fiery. You know, he really, one executive described NVIDIA to me as like his baby. And if he thinks his baby is in trouble, he's going to react with like anger, right? So he can be very fiery temper. It's confusing because he seems so charming when you first meet him. He's such a charming guy. He's so funny. He's a funny guy. He's very intelligent. He's very warm. He really looks after his people. And so then when he explodes in anger, it's like very surprising. You don't see it coming. But anyone who has worked with Jensen for any period of time longer than a month or two has seen the anger. They've seen the temper because it's such a strong part of his personality. So for me, when Jensen was yelling at me, it actually kind of felt a little bit like an honor, because I had heard from so many people that he will scream at people, and I didn't ever think I would personally witness it because I don't, work for him. But it felt like I was being accepted into his inner circle. Jensen uses anger as a motivating tactic. He uses it to motivate people in the same way that like a coach of like a sports team might start screaming at his own players to perform better. I think it's the same thing Jensen does. I think it's deliberate. I think it's on purpose. Jensen is much smarter than me. He's just one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. And it can be humbling and intimidating to talk to him because you're not at his level. His mind is just moving so fast. And not only is his mind moving so fast, he is also, and this is his secret, he is a world-class computer scientist. If Jensen was not the executive of a large company, he would be getting patents on new designs for microchips. He can go to the front lines in his company and build computers with the best of them, personally. And not a lot of executives can do that, right? It would be similar to if the author, whoever ran the publishing company was also a best-selling author, right? And so it's hard to have both the capacity to manage everything, but also the very intimate technical knowledge to build what needs to get built. So in this way, we're completely different. I am definitely not a world-class computer scientist. Probably our biggest similarity, and this was the thing I found most relatable about him, is that he can't watch video of himself. And I wrote a magazine profile of him and he couldn't read it. He couldn't bring himself to read a profile of himself. In fact, he told me he would never read this book.
So why?
I don't know, but I'm the same way. So I will never watch this interview.
So
I've never read any reviews of my work. I can't read my work after it's published. I feel shame. Shame. I'm deeply ashamed of it. I start reading it and I only see errors. I only see flaws. Jensen is exactly the same way. I watched him go on stage and present to like 400 architects, okay? And Jensen gives, 100 public lectures a year, minimum, right? He's constantly talking in public, and he's a fantastic public speaker. He's great at it, actually. But he told me he hates public speaking. And I thought he was just saying that. And I'm looking at this guy, and he's the most powerful person in AI, and he has $100 billion, and he's nervous. He was nervous to go on stage. And he's so good on stage. But he told me he can't sleep at night before he goes on stage, and it's true. Like he can't sleep at night before he has to go give a public presentation. It makes him so nervous and anxious. And so this part of him I relate to a lot. The kind of vulnerability, I find it, I get it. I just get that part of him. And I find that relatable. I find he's so attached to his kids. He's so attached to his wife, and I find that really endearing. It's the most positive quality. I anticipated something like DeepSeek would come along. Everyone I talked to who worked on the software side would always say, this model we're currently using, where we just spend hundreds of millions of dollars and enormous amounts of power and computing and electricity on building these systems, is not efficient. Everyone I talked to in the software world was always saying there has to be a better way than this. This is too expensive. All of the software guys were constantly looking for improvements. DeepSeek found them. So DeepSeek found the software improvements that all of the software guys were looking for. The guys at Google who invented the transformer, they were on stage with Jensen, and they said to him directly, we don't think this is the best way to do this. This is not how we envisioned AI working. We didn't envision it costing $10 billion to train the most advanced and sophisticated training model. We'd like to do it for $1 million, okay? And to some extent, DeepSeek has accomplished that. Liang Wenfeng, who is kind of the guy behind DeepSeek, he's very brilliant. I was just in China and I tried to meet him, but I couldn't get past the door. I was actually right next to their facility in Beijing, but no one will talk. So no one quite knows what it's like inside DeepSeek. But it's clear that they have, using a mixture of Extra's approach and then some basic numeric improvements, made a much more efficient model. So what does that mean for NVIDIA? Well, initially NVIDIA's stock price went down a lot. But NVIDIA's core belief, I think, going way back, is they always look for computing products that have infinite demand. So going way back to the video game days, they realized that the market for 3D graphics had infinite demand. So even if someone found a way to do 3D graphics much more efficiently, it didn't make demand for NVIDIA's products go away. It just made developers and people want to do more ambitious things. The core belief inside NVIDIA now is that it's also true for AI. What was true for 3D graphics is also true for AI, that there is infinite demand. So if we make it more efficient, if we make it easier to develop intelligent systems, that does not satisfy the demand for the product. It only makes developers and our AI experts try and do more ambitious things with the technology. So the real risk to them is not so much DeepSeek, I think. The real risk is stuff like Huawei and SMIC, because as the tariffs come into place, as NVIDIA chips it's harder to source them, say, in China, I think the US containment strategy has failed and is in fact failing in front of our eyes right now. DeepSeek proves that has failed. And in fact, there's a new model called Manus, which I have not used, but is creating all sorts of buzz right now. And in fact, is said to be ahead of OpenAI's $200 a month research model. So clearly, this strategy has failed. Is that Trump has enacted sort of unilaterally tariffs on not just Taiwan, but in fact the entire world. All of America's largest trading partners, Americans must now pay taxes to buy their goods. This is, in my view, a terrible development. It's economically very bad for the United States. It's economically bad for every other country as well. It doesn't generate wealth. It's just a tax. So it's a terrible outcome. And the US stock market has responded by going down. In fact, all of the gains that Trump kind of saw when he first got elected have evaporated now. This creates a ton of pressure, in particular on Taiwan, because TSMC has for so many years been the kind of enabling factor in NVIDIA's success. And Jensen and Morris Chang had a very close relationship. In fact, they were friends. They would go over to one another's houses. They would spend time with one another's children. Morris was almost like Jensen's uncle in some ways. They were very close friends, almost like a family relationship. And NVIDIA relied critically on TSMC to build this stuff, at least the plants here in Taiwan. So with the tariffs, this creates a totally new environment, completely different than the last 30 years of NVIDIA's operation. And this will require massive shifts if these tariffs stay, both in the way NVIDIA operates and the way Taiwan supplies NVIDIA as well.